Hello everybody. So today we are at St. Louis, Missouri at the National Transportation Museum, and it is raining. In fact, it's pouring down rain. I've never been here, so I don't know how much of it's outside and how much of it's inside, but we're going to check it out and see today because I've got to be here for the next 8 hours, or at least in St. Louis, not here, but I got to be in this area for the next 8 hours, so we'll see how this turns out. Here's what it looks like outside right now. Like I said, it's raining, and as you can see, it is pouring outside. If you go this way, they do have, I'm actually under an awning, there's an FA-18E. See if I can zoom in on it here so you can see it a little closer. There's an FA-18E. If it quits raining, we're going to go out there to it so we can look at it better. Let me get inside, but yeah, it's really nasty outside here today. You guys can't see the raindrops, I'm sure, but it's really bad. Okay guys, we're in the museum now. It says that this is a Bellefonte rail from 1870 mule car. Pulled cars between downtown St. Louis and St. Louis County. Passengers entered through the rear door and they paid a nickel fee. So it was all an open thing, so. The Popcorn Express, it says. That's pretty cool. So it was all open. They didn't have any cars or anything to cover it up with. And what is this here? This is a XP2 made history carrying the world's first Hyperloop passengers from Virgin Mobile. So it says that this can go up to 640 miles an hour. And the people sit in there. You can see the seat belts where they sit at. And it looks like a spaceship hatch almost that closes and locks them in. And let's go around here and see if we can see what it says about the rest of it here. Hyperloop is propelled with linear electrical motors. Wow. That's really neat. They travel through an enclosed tube. Removed to eliminate aerodynamic drag. Wow, that's pretty cool. So it's like floating on air, the ride is. Sorry guys, had a phone call. So this is the Admiral. It says the Admiral ran between 1938 and 1940. It was a part of a steamer in St. Louis built with the Albatross steel hull with 5 super structures in the late Art Deco style maze. Wow. So that's pretty neat. But the thing was huge in real life. You can see the paddles down at the bottom where it ran off the paddle wheel from the steam. And then on top, on the deck, it had like umbrellas and tables and stuff. That's really cool. And then you can see the stacks there where the steam came out. Wow, this is a pretty... Oh, there were even pinball machines. There's even pinball machines in here. I guess where they had like entertainment stuff. And here's a shot at the top deck. And this is the middle deck. There's a picture that tells about it by the arch. Over here, there's a 1926 Willys Overland Model 91. It's part of the Route 66 story. Because it was 1926, the Route 66 opened. It's a 100-year anniversary Route 66. Oh, yeah, that's fine. There's also like comfortable. says here that in 1926, Willie's Automobile represented the year it all began in the Earl C. Lumberg Automotive Center. One car from each decade traced the 100-year history of Route 66. Over here they have a train model. And we have a hot air balloon there going around circles. Over here they're doing some construction on the track. This lets you see the train going around. The infamous press penny machine. I am going to get 4 of them. I don't have any change with me right now, so I'm going to go ask for some, but that's pretty neat. I don't see many press penny machines anymore, so. And then they also have a place where you can get a snack and drinks. So this tells about Walt Disney. He lived in Missouri, and he said that when Walt started playing in Disney World, he said, "I want it to look like nothing else in the world, and it must be surrounded by a train." So there's some of the displays in here. There's Judy Garland's, something about Judy Garland in here. There's a train at the bottom. Here at the bottom there's a train. I'm not sure where this is from. Okay, so it says that the plates and stuff are from the railroad. Sorry guys, I've been getting phone call after phone call after phone call today. I go out of town for one day and the whole world falls apart. I'm in St. Louis. Heather had a business thing up here for her job, and I wanted to come, but I didn't want to stay there at her job all day. So I told her I was going to go to the museum. Over here they've got a little bit of a gift shop. We'll go into that later. Around here they have some flight suits, it looks like, maybe. F-15 Eagle, C-17, McDonnell Douglas. Oh, there's a Boy Scout uniform as well. Okay. This is just information, I guess, about the different displays in here, some of the planes. There is planes outside, but like I said, it's raining, so I don't know how much of them we'll get to see. Oh, there's the Blue Angels. That's cool. I like the Blue Angels. Okay, this display is about Major Lee Barra. Said that he grew up less than a mile from here. He came here a lot as a kid. He said he had 2,566 military flight hours and 30 different aircraft. And it said 2,270 of those hours were in supersonic B-1 Lancer. It says he came back here in January of 2017, and he gifted them his helmet that he wore. And because he came here so much as a kid that he wanted to donate something to here. So there he is there. It says there he is as a kid at the age of 6. And then here's at the age of 29. And these are some of his awards that he got. And then this tells about his family and him. Here talks about all kinds of aircraft. There's anything from fighter jets to commercial aircraft to the space shuttle. See one of the shuttle missions, space shuttle. It's going from 1993 to 1927, it looks like. This whole wall is just full of models of different aircraft, spaceships, rockets, things like that through the years. So then the same back here. This has to do with just transportation in general. It might be cars, it might be spaceships. There's one of them building the arch. It says arch opens to the public 1967. Different cars and ships. This is all Route 66. Okay guys, I made it through the rain to the other building up here where the vehicles are at. It says that this is a 1912 Metz. Never heard of one. It says METZ on the front of it. This is a 1928 Ford Model A. This is the Sports Coupe Edition. This one's a 1937 Chevy Master Deluxe. 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 This is a Willys Jeep, 1942 Willys Jeep. Of course, it's a military edition one. Has a trailer hooked to it as well. Talks about the importance of Route 66 during World War II. Became far more than a main street of America. It was a critical military and industrial artery for the support of the troop movements, wartime production, and the westward mitigation. This is a 1951 Studebaker. And this is one of my favorite cars. This is a 1964 Ford Mustang. Actually, it's 64 and a half. Very nice car. Then this is a 1970 GTO Judge. The Gran Turismo. Had the Ram Air. This is a sharp car here. It's a Judge package. Wow, I like the stripes on there. And that color. Now I remember these. This was an 86 Fiero. SE Automatic. Pontiac made these. And they were $11,200. They was built in Muncie, Indiana. Wow. That brings back a lot of memories from high school. This one here is a Viper, 1997 Dodge Viper GTS. It's SR2 it says. It's really cool too. I like the green and white stripe on it. Over here is a big truck. Let's see what this is. This is a 2005 International Cat or CXT pickup. It says, oh, it is a pickup. Okay. From the front, I thought it was a semi truck, but it says it is a pickup truck. That thing is huge. Let me get back so you guys can see this whole thing here. Don't trip over this other car. This thing is huge. Check this out. Wow, that is really cool. And everybody knows what this one is. Everybody says that the 2015 Challenger SRT Hellcat, they say they look like the old Challenger. I think they do in the front maybe a little bit, but I don't see Challenger in there. Or old Challenger. And what is this here? This says Bradley. I've never heard of a Bradley. Let's see what it looks like here. Has the doors that open like the DeLorean did. Wow, there's the inside of it here. Stay behind the rope. Well, we're going to. Oh, it was an electric car. Well, that is just nifty. 1980 Bradley GTE2. It was the first developed in the late... Oh, it talks about the electric motor. It's $28,000 MSRP price back in 1980. But look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got 8 batteries down there and one at the top. So I'm not sure what the one at the top runs, but it had 8 batteries. Wow. It's no Tesla. It is really cool though. It's even got the charger right back there. Oh, looks like an old golf cart charger. Back here, this is a Chevy Bel Air, I think, but I don't know what year. Let's see here. That's a 57. Chevy Bel Air 4-door hardtop. So I guess I had to drive in. It's got the speaker there. And 1957 Cushman Eagle scooter. Okay, and this one here says it's a 37 Chevy. It came from St. Louis here. I think it was a fruit stand, maybe vegetable stand. Here's an old milk truck. Imagine getting milk like that, delivering it every morning, and then returning the bottles. It's a different time, but 1965 Devco 300E truck. This says Pevely Dairy Company. I guess that would be here in maybe St. Louis. Let's see what it says here. 1920 Pevely Milk Wagon. Before supermarkets and electric refrigerators, widespread usage for fresh milk in glass bottles with home delivery. Said it was pulled by horses and it would make deliveries to the houses. Said it retired from service in St. Louis in 1950. That is really neat. This here's a 1923 Moon. So St. Louis manufactured the Moon, was known for producing stylish, well-appointed vehicles, and the 658 Sport Touring is one of the most respective examples. I never heard of a Moon either. Here's another supermarket truck. It's 1919 Doris. And we'll turn around here. There's some kind of boat. Let's see what we have here. This says Principalia College. Let's see what it says in the front. 2008. It's a solar car. It's not a boat. It's a solar car. 300-pound solar car. Manufactured for the students in Principalia College. Raced across the U.S. and Australia. That is really cool. An A.L. Dyke steam car. Wow. I could not imagine driving a steam car around all day. There's another 1901 St. Louis Motor Carriage Company. So the St. Louis Motor Carriage Company was the first successful automotive business west of the Mississippi River. Founded by George Preston Doris and John French in 1898. They built over 680 of these vehicles in its first St. Louis plant from 1899 to 1905. French left and built vehicles in Peoria, Illinois, and George Doris stayed along behind in St. Louis and ran the Doris Motor Car Company until 1906. So that Doris back here that we've seen a while ago, I understand more about it now. So he went from that to making these. That's a big change to go from that, or from this to that. Oh, now I'm getting excited. There's an Indy car sitting here. An Indy car. St. Louis Blues, Mercedes-Benz. Oh, this is Helio Castroneves' car. Well, that is really cool. Helio Castroneves. What year was this? Let's see here. It's got the St. Louis Cardinals on it too. 1998. Raced by the St. Louis-based Hogan Racing. 1988. Featured a carbon fiber Kevlar reinforced body. In its race condition, the Mercedes-Benz engine. Yep, Helio Castroneves raced the car. Wow, okay. It was used as a show exhibit car following its retirement from racing prior to its donation in 1999. There's the Hogan Racing. There's the St. Louis Cardinals. Like I said, St. Louis Blues. Wow. Got St. Louis plastered all over it. And this one over here is another one of my favorite cars. This is a Corvette. 1963 Chevy Corvette, or 65, I'm sorry, Chevy Corvette. It's got the fiberglass body. It's the first economical sports car, it says. It says the Corvette evolved into one of the greatest sports cars not only in the United States but also worldwide. It was built in St. Louis from 1954 to 1981. Then it moved its production to Bowling Green, Kentucky. That's where it's still at. Really cool. Okay, this is a 1965 Chevy Corsa Fitch Sprint. I've never seen a Corvair. Corsa. Huh. Okay, I don't really like it, but I guess it's according to...
I did, what part of it? I live in a town called East, right? Southern, right along the Illinois.
Let's go over here.
Lake Geneva?
Let's go over here to this area here and see what they've got over here. Showing some kind of video in here as well. So this is a Plymouth Barracuda. I can tell that just by looking at it. It's a 67 Plymouth Barracuda. I do like it. That is really sharp, that car is. I'm not a Dodge or Chrysler person, but I really like the Plymouth Barracuda. This over here is called a 1960 Dia. Never heard of it at all. So it says 1960 DIA. Is that Dia? Like something from the future. It's got the back bubbled. And then everybody will know what this vehicle is. It's a 57 Chevy as well. This is a Bel Air convertible. The other one was a hardtop we've seen over there. This is the convertible. And these are a sharp car. I would love to have one of these. Upstairs at the museum. I'm not sure what they have up here, but it says the National Museum of Transportation preserving the past 80 years in the making. So it just gives pictures of some of the stuff they have here. There's a gentleman that has been nice enough to give us a tour outside with an umbrella to go to the rail yard. So we're going to do that here in just a little bit. So this says 1980s and 90s. Hey, that's my era. What do they have over here? Vandura. Wow, GMC Vandura. 7-Bull, a Jeep, a Mercury, Chevy. There's old Fifth Avenue. Wow. Look at the old instrument cluster. 1983 Pontiac Fiero. Wow. That bring. There's 60s and 70s. Look at that instrument cluster. 1975 AMC Pacer speedometer cable. Hey, it's a radio, and those are cassette tapes. I haven't seen a cassette tape in a while. And this is even older. This is a 8-track tape player. Wow. So Plymouth Fury symbol right there. Fairlane, a Comet. Wow. Ooh, a 61 Buick. Now that's a good car. What's over here? 1950s. A 1959 Etzel speedometer. Wow. The rest of these are just kind of displays from the 40s, 30s. GMC in the 20s, it says. And over here, these were Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. So a lot of the GMs, I don't remember what year they started. It might tell me up here. But you would open your door and it would say Body by Fisher. So I guess they had the contract with GM to do the inside bodies and stuff for GM for years. So up there at the top, started in 1930. It looks like it ran through 1968. I know it went farther than that because we had cars that had Fisher bodies in them as well. I'm not sure what year they quit making bodies by Fisher. And there's the symbol. So that was when you opened your car door up and you look down there by your feet where you get in at, they would have that symbol there. And that was the Body by Fisher symbol. I remember seeing that as I grew up. Oh, here's the symbol here I was talking about. So this symbol right here, this is the one, if I can get it in frame here, that was what you would see when you get in your car. They would also have them like this. There were some round ones like that. Now I remember those three, but these other three I don't remember, so they must have been older. But I do remember seeing that one, and especially this one when I was growing up. There's another Body by Fisher. Over here they've got some of the Monsters television series. They have the Ghostbusters 84. In 1984 it was a 59 Cadillac ambulance. They have an 81 DeLorean, of course, from Back to the Future. They have the Batman 1960 concept Lincoln Division car. And then down here, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, they have the 1961 Ferrari 250 GT and James Bond. They have the Aston Martin DB5. Of course, these are all model cars, but still pretty cool. They got them on display. This is just around the whole thing up here. This is upstairs at that museum. Okay, we're gonna go downstairs, see if we can go outside. This is going up toward the, call it the Abbott building, where the trains are parked at, for them to display them. We're gonna try to get underneath there since it's raining and go through some of these trains. Going up to the engine at the start of this tour here. Here's the old tracks. Noah Pittington Tunnel. There's a tunnel up there. Oh, that's better. How do I close this?
Yeah, usually we start out by walking up and down the lower lot, and then we go up to the Roberts building. But because it's so wet today, I figure we'll stay underneath the sheds.
Oh, yeah.
So, railroads. The first steam engines were invented by a guy named James Watt, whose name you may recognize because that's where the term Watt came from. If you want the definition of genius, James Watt built a motor, an engine, to pump water out of a coal mine. And what does it take to operate? Water and coal. Now, his pumps were designed to run constantly. They were constantly pumping the water out of the mines, and they were designed to last forever. So they ran at very low pressure. They were absolutely huge. They had big flywheels on them to keep them running smoothly. And he built them in the late 1700s, and they still have examples that work today. So obviously he knew how to build steam engines. Railroads for centuries, that they were powered either by horse or by people pushing the cars. So when they decided to start trying to build steam engines for trains, they had to make them smaller and lighter. That meant they had to be higher pressure. And the first person who's credited with a successful steam engine, his name was Stephenson, and he built an engine called the Rocket that operated in England. The trains very quickly came over to the United States, and by about 1830 they were running steam engines on railroads here in the United States. So, and the form of power that they used on steam locomotives was either wood, coal, or oil. You could tell by looking in the tender which it was. We have an example of a tender up here. The tender was where they stored the water and the oil. So the back half of the tender is basically a giant water tank. And the front half of the tender was a bin where you stored your fuel. Now if it was an oil-fired engine, it would have an oil tank in there. Otherwise it would have a big bin with either cords of wood or lumps of coal in it. The fireman, there's a pipe that runs from the tank to the boiler and a pump that pumps the water into the boiler, because the boiler would be at pressure and the water would not be pressurized, so the pump has to force the water into the boiler. But the fireman would take the fuel and put it into the firebox. And the firebox is this part of the engine behind here. And it's basically it's like an oven. It's completely lined with bricks made out of some kind of heat absorbing material to keep all the heat in. And we burn the coal in there, and the fumes would travel through the boiler and be collected in the smoke box, which is this part, and then injected out of the smokestack. Now this part of the tank of the boiler was all full of pipes, and the pipes were full of water. That's called a water tube boiler. The other kind, the fumes would go through the tubes and the water would be collected inside the boiler. But a water tube boiler was a more efficient way to do it, and that's what they usually did. So the water would start boiling and it would be collected by the steam dome. And this is the steam dome on this engine, I think. These two are sand domes. So this pipe would run sand down to the wheels if the engine was losing traction. Anyway, the water collected in the steam dome, the steam collected in the steam dome would then be fed down to the cylinder, and that's this right here. And the cylinder is basically a tube, and it's got a piston in it, and this upper part is a valve. And so when you're ready to go, you flip the levers, and the valve lets steam in front of the piston. That pushes the piston back. And the piston pushes this rod pushes the drive rod pushes the wheel, and the wheel starts spinning. When the piston gets to the end of its travel, the valve slides to the other side and lets steam into the back, and that pushes the piston forward, and that continues the motion. So unlike an automobile engine where you're only getting power on one side of the cylinder, on a steam engine you're getting it on both sides. It makes it more efficient. The other thing that you can't notice is that the drive rods are offset by 90 degrees. So this one is here, the one on the other side would be either down here or up here. So it's offset by 90 degrees. That way, if the rod is at the back of its travel, when you try to start it, it knows which way to go, because there's always going to be one side or the other where it's not pushed all the way to the back. So that's basically how a steam engine works. They became more sophisticated over the years, but that's standard here. You can see them. There's two there and two there. So that's a 4. The second number was the number of powered wheels. So that's these 4 wheels are powered. So that's 4 and 4. And then the last 4 were the trailing truck. And this engine doesn't have a trailing truck, so it's a 0. Now they also assigned names to them. It was a convention. It wasn't necessarily like the law. But 440s were called Americans. At one point, 80% of the locomotives on the tracks in the United States were 440s, so it makes sense they were called Americans. The pilot trucks were installed because very early on they ran 040s, which means that they would just have this set of 4 wheels and they would be happily trucking along. Once they got up to about 15 miles or so, they found that when you started going through a curve, instead of the engine following the curve, the wheels would start walking up on the rail and derail the engine. So Once they got up to a little bit faster, they had to figure out a way to keep the train on the tracks when they were going through a curve. And the way they did that was by installing another truck in the front. That's called the pilot truck. And they call it that because it steers the engine into the curve. So when the engine goes into the curve, that pilot truck will turn the wheels, and that'll keep the drive wheels on the track. The trailing truck, which we'll see in a minute, was installed because up until about 1900, the firebox was always in between the wheels on the train, on the engine. And that limited its size to how wide the wheels were. And the wheels are 4 feet 8.5 inches, so you could only get a firebox so big. They needed more and more power. The firebox needed to get bigger and bigger, but the firemen could only reach so far into the firebox. So they needed another solution. And one of the solutions for freight engines was to put the firebox over top of the wheels, but a better one was to put it behind the wheels. And in order to put it behind the wheels, then you can make it as wide as the engine instead of as wide as the track. I think it was in the 1950s, and showed people what railroading was like in the 1800s. And so one of the things you'll notice about these cars that more modern cars don't have are these things right here. These are called truss rods. And the ladies might know that a truss is something that holds them up. Truss rods are designed, these cars are made out of wood. Even the frame of the car is made out of wood, and it would have a tendency to sag. And so they installed truss rods, and the truss rods would hold the center of the car up so the car wouldn't sag in the middle. Later cars, they started building the frames out of steel, and they didn't need truss rods anymore. So modern 20th century cars, a lot of times you won't see truss rods very early on, and then later on they went away entirely. The trucks are another thing that are kind of interesting. The earliest trucks were called wood beam trucks, and I'll show you one of those up here. It's basically 4 beams of wood that were all assembled together in a box pattern, and then they bolted all of the the axle housings for the car to it, and that's what they operated. But you know, made out of wood, they didn't last that long. And they were tendency to break loose, so they started making these. And you can see these are assembled by bolting together a bunch of bent iron bars or steel bars. They're called Andrews trucks or arch bar trucks. And they were better than wood beam trucks, but you still had problems because the bolts would work loose and things like that. And so later still they went to a type of truck where the entire frame was cast out of one piece. And I'll show you one of those in a minute.
What are these?
These are, so these old locomotives and cars, the axle had a bronze bearing, and that's how you attached it to the truck. So there's a bronze bearing in there. I was talking about wood beam trucks. This is a wood beam truck. You can see this part is wood right here.
Oh, wow.
And it forms, there are four pieces. It forms a square, and then they bolt on this cast piece, and that's what actually holds the wheels.
Wow.
So like I said, they worked early on, but they weren't that good for, they didn't survive weather. You know, they wore out more quickly, and they weren't as good for heavier loads.
Huh. Did it come with termite policy?
What's that?
Termite.
Did it come with termite policy? Termite policy, yeah. I think so.
Probably cost, I would say. Yeah.
So I promised you I'd show you a cast truck. This is a cast truck. They're commonly called Bettendorf. There were a few manufacturers of different types, but I think this one's a Bettendorf. But it's a one-piece, this whole side frame here is cast out of one piece of metal. And it solved all the problems of bolting things together because there aren't any bolts in it. This locomotive is a Pacific. It was from the Canadian National. And I also talked about trailing trucks. This locomotive has a trailing truck. So you can see there's a set of wheels sitting underneath here. And that is to hold up the firebox. And you can see the firebox is actually wider than the wheels, the drive wheels are.
Wow. That's a big engine there.
Oh, that's too bad. I can't show you this. This is our 882, and they're called articulated. What it means is that the frame is actually split in the middle so that the train can go around curves. It's absolutely huge, and it's got 2 sets of 8 drive wheels on it. Not only is this particular one articulated, it's also called a mallet. In a regular articulated locomotive like the big boy that we're going to see later, the steam goes from the boiler through the steam dome and then down to both cylinders at the same time. In a mallet, it goes into a high pressure cylinder, and from the high pressure cylinder it goes to a low pressure cylinder.
Wow.
This is the Union Pacific big boy. It's the largest steam locomotive ever built, one of 25. 8 still survive, and one of them, 4014, still runs. Union Pacific name.
Wow.
This is a 4884, so it's got 4 trailing trucks, 2 sets of drivers, and 4 wheels in the leading truck. It's a simple articulated locomotive, so the cylinders are both the same size, and the steam goes to both at the same time. So this is the largest steam locomotive ever built.
Wow.
The largest diesel locomotive ever built is this one. This is a DD40. Basically, they took 2 medium-sized locomotives, put them on the same platform, and gave them 4-wheel trucks. It's called a Centennial. I've heard 2 stories about that. One is it's a Centennial because they introduced it on the 100th anniversary of the railroad, the Union Pacific. The other story I heard is it was called Centennial because it's 100 feet long. Now they built a bunch of these, and they found out that this engine
Wow. This is the biggest steam engine that was built, and he said there was 4 of them and 1 still in operation. These things are huge. I didn't know they made a steam engine that big. That one says September 1941 on it by American Locomotive Company. Wow. Union Pacific Equipment Trust Service. So I guess Union Pacific owned that one. And then over here, the Union Pacific also owned the biggest diesel, he said.
This is a rotary snowplow.
A rotary
snowplow is used in places where the snow gets so high.
rotary snowplow.
Push it away from the track. It's got a gauge here to show you how high the snow actually is.
Wow, right there, yep. Oh, wow.
And the way it works is it's got a gigantic fan. This whole thing spins at 150 RPM, and it throws the snow out of the tongue.
Wow.
Now, I'm told that we inherited this engine from the Union Pacific, or this plow from the Union Pacific, because somebody left the dump truck on the tracks in the middle of the night. It broke down, and rather than getting it off the tracks, they went home.
So they said we could go up inside the big boy here. So we're going to go up in it and check it out. Wish it wasn't raining, guys. I'm sorry, but can't see a lot of this because of the rain. But we'll see what we can. This is going up inside the biggest steam locomotive there is. Wow. Everything's labeled. Independent brake, engineer, pressure gauge. Welcome to the cab of the big boy. Imagine learning what all those valves did.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
You gotta grab them when you needed them.
Yep.
Trying to stay cool without sweating.
Yep.
Crazy.
Wow. Old ticket booth. Old steam engine. And here's a GM motor, General Motors diesel electric locomotive. Right here. 1939 it says. The tour guide was saying that in 1939 GM built these to prove to the locomotive community that diesel was cheaper and more efficient than running steam. So he said they started building these in 1939, and you can see inside, this is a skin, the inside is the diesel engine in there. National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark. Wow. Then there's some other steam engines here. Other cars. Let's go back down here with the tour. See what he says about some of this other stuff here. At least it's dry underneath here.
Built in 1942. This is a typical freight engine of the era. Like I said, it's the largest non-articulated ever built. This was built in 1860.
Wow.
It's the oldest locomotive we have, and it's a typical railroad locomotive that you would find on the main line. So there's 80 years between these two locomotives, and you can see how significantly they've changed, both in size and complexity. Now the Daniel Mason is kind of unique. It's got what's called a Dutch model. Every other steam locomotive you see will have a pair of cylinders right here. You can see it right there, that's the cylinders. But there aren't any cylinders on this one. The cylinders are actually located underneath the boiler instead of next to them. And the drivetrain goes up to a crankshaft on the lead wheel. So this isn't the only one that was built that way, but this is the only surviving locomotive that was built that way. This one actually burned coal. You can see it's got the big funny flared stack on it, which would indicate it was burning wood. At some point, this has been used for several, they actually took everything off the housing so you can see how it all works.
Wow, it's a training aid, so they took the housing off so you can see the engine. Wow.
So this is a diesel engine. You can see they've taken some of the cylinders off and stuff. But this is a big diesel motor, and then it's attached directly to a motor generator. And you can see the wires that go down. These go down to the trucks, and the actual motors are in the truck. Now this is a CC locomotive, which means it's got two trucks. Each truck has 3 axles. So there are 3 motors on each truck, and you can see there's
And there's the intercooler. There's the lube filter. There's the air compressor. Air compressor right here. And then there's a radiator fan to cool it. Wow. Of course something went on the end of it up there.
And then this is the air compressor.
Wow. How big the air compressor
so
is.
that the cars would go.
That's crazy.
All right.
Wow, like that.
It was very comfortable, and he conveyed that into an entire industry. He manufactured the cars. He had a factory in a town called Pullman, Illinois. A coincidental name, wasn't it? He manned the cars with his own porters. At his height, he had 25,000 porters working for him. Wow. And he leased them out to the railroads. And the railroads wanted them because the Pullman
Porter's berth, wow.
Pullman sleeper was a status symbol for them. Now you can see here on the right side here, you can see what it looked like in the daytime. And then this is what it looked like at night. The porters would come around and convert the cars to sleepers. And he paid a lot of attention to little details, like these wall sections that could be pulled in the daytime to open the car up, and at night they could be pulled out and provide privacy.
So that just folded down.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a crank, and then this little hole right here is where the crank handle went.
So both sides would be sleeping at night.
Yep, yep. And they had privacy curtains. They had had this little hanger so they could hang their coat up on.
Wow.
It's kind of genius, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Very, very well thought out.
Yeah.
Now at the end of the aisle here is a parlor. This is someplace where somebody who could, like, it would be the equivalent of first class nowadays. But if you had a large family or you were wealthy and you wanted privacy, you could rent the parlor out. What year did you say this was built? 1928.
1928. Wow.
Now, the upper bunks were actually a little bit less expensive than the lower bunks, because if you had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you had to wake the porter up and wait for him to bring the ladder down. The last room in the car is the ladies' restroom, and the two things I like to point out are the little brass cups on the dressing table. Those are for them to put their hair in after they brush their hair so they don't clog the sink. And the other thing is, if you look at the windows, you'll see they're designed to allow light into the restroom, but ensure privacy. This last corner is the coach, and I would say it's an atypical coach. It's typical because this is the kind of seating arrangement that you would find in a coach on a train. It's atypical because this particular one was used as a commuter car between Pacific, Missouri and St. Louis Union Station. And so for two things that were not normal, the vestibules were twice as wide to get people off the car more quickly. And the other thing is that the seat backs would actually pivot so that you didn't have to turn the car around when you got to the end of the line. You could just pivot the seats so all of them face the other way. Some of them work and some of them don't, and I haven't figured out which ones work,
That's
so we're
pretty
not
cool.
going to play with it. But you can see some of the seats are facing the opposite direction.
Wow.
This was used from the 1920s until the 1960s, and there's some photographs. They had a big celebration at the end. The same people rode these cars every day. They were commuter cars, and there's like a picture of an ongoing poker game that apparently ran every day. So yeah. So that concludes my part of the tour. If you want to wander around up here, feel free. Anywhere that's zoned off or fenced off, you should not go through there. But otherwise, you can feel free to look around.
It's a bathroom.
Go back if you want to take
That's crazy. This is a bathroom. How small this is. I can't even get in here.
For the Lindbergh building.
A truck made into a train. That is pretty cool. It's made by Super White Power.
Oh, it's a school bus.
It's a school bus, yeah.
It was.
Yeah. It's a truck made into a school bus. That is really cool. It has the guard on the front of it like a train does. Oh, it is. Okay, it is. Okay, it is on the track.
That was the requirement.
Yeah. So it is on the track, but it's a bus on the tracks. So it looks just like a regular school bus with the doors and everything, but it goes on the track. So it's actually on a train track and rails. So it looks like here in the back. Oh wow. It's even got a place for the old license plate on it and stuff. But yeah, that's a bus, and then you can see here where the wheel was. So it's a truck converted into or a bus converted into a train. Wow. Wow.
Extremely popular for passenger trains. The next one down is an RS-1, which is an early freight train used by the Arkansas and Missouri Railroad. And then the GS-6 is the last one down at the end, and we have to go down and look at that.
Cool.
So GS stands for Golden State. The Union Pacific built the first 484, and under the white notation, whoever built the first locomotive got to name it. And so the Union Pacific named it Union, but the Union Pacific and Southern Pacific are competitors, and there was no way the Southern Pacific was going to call something Union. So they decided to call these Golden State.
Okay.
They built GS 1 through 5, and then when World War II started, they needed more locomotives, and they went ahead and ordered a GS 6. The only difference between this and the other ones is the bearings on the drive wheels are a different style because the newer bearings had more priorities elsewhere. So they actually painted stars on the center of the drive wheel to indicate to the maintenance people that it required a different form of maintenance than the other ones.
So that's all the stars mean. Wow.
Yeah. Now, because this was a war baby, it was never painted in the daylight colors with the orange stripes on it. It was always painted in black. And the reason it was preserved is because it was the last revenue passenger one in the Southern Pacific.
Wow.
It was done by this.
So that's the closest I can get to an airplane today with the rain like it is. It's rained here all day and it's supposed to rain some more, so I can get my gimbal to stop here. There we go. That's an FA-18E from Boeing. Super Hornet, I think is what they called it. Have a good day, everybody. Guys, so I'm going to end the video here. I'm in St. Louis, like I said, and it's been pouring down rain all day today. So I'm sorry I can't go out and see the airplanes and stuff here. I will show you one at the end of the video here when I get done. But I'm waiting on my Uber to come and pick me up. And I will see you guys on our next adventure. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you have any questions, let me know, or any comments. Bye.